have 1 standard deviation below and 1 standard deviation above, will give us 68%. Let's talk about if we do 2 standard deviations of the mean. Okay? So I'm going to go down and I'm going to write this part because I forgot it. Here is plus 1 standard deviation. Here is minus 1 standard deviation. Let's do the next one. So here is plus 2 standard deviations. Here is minus 2 standard deviations. And so keep in mind that means that we include everything already. So you should be coloring over your red or whatever color you decided to color it. Yep. Have a good day, love. So if I wanted to do the math here, I still have that 68 that was within 1 standard deviation. But now I have 2 of the 13.5s. And this is going to give me 95%. So I have 68, 34 plus 34. I have a 13.5. A 13.5, so I multiplied it by 2 because I have 2 of them. That gave me 95%. Lastly, I have 3 standard deviations. So that means that I have negative 3 standard deviations below. I have positive 3 standard deviations here. That means I'm going to color everything. Not everything, but between from 3 to 3, I'm going to color it. Notice how I'm coloring and I'm including everything else from my previous time. So therefore, I have 95 plus 2 times 2.35. That should give me 99.7%. The only thing that I want to remind you is do not forget about these numbers. These numbers here, which are outside of the 3 standard deviations, they're very easy to forget. So make sure that you either circle them, you highlight them. Make sure that you do not forget them. I'm going to give you a moment, and then we're going to do some examples. All right, y'all, let's do a few examples. My hope is to be done by 3 o'clock, 3:05. So, I am going to show you the numbers that are important. 2,000 freshmen at State University took a biology test. Those scores were normally distributed with a mean of 70 and a standard deviation of 5. Label the mean and 3 standard deviations from the mean. Just look a little blurry to me. One moment. All right. So, 2,000 stands for the total. We're going to need that later. Whenever you see the word distributed, normally that means to make a picture. With these type of equations, I know it sounds tedious, but you always want to make a picture. Then you want to know that your mean is equal to 70 and your standard deviation is equal to 5. These symbols are just what we use in statistics. If we were moving forward in these lessons, they would be a little bit more significant. But I just want you to be used to seeing them like this. So using that information, the first thing I want to know is what percentages of scores are between 65 and 75. Well, before we do that, we need to know where the numbers go. So class, can you remind me, what number goes in the center, in the middle? The mean. Nice. That means I'm going to put 70 here. 70 goes in the middle. Now, 5 tells me what I'm going to add or subtract. So if I'm going to the right, that means I'm going to add 5. So add 5, 70. Add 5, 80. Add 5, 85. So what that means is 75 is where the first standard deviation is. 80 is where the second standard deviation is. 85 is where the third deviation is. So now that we have added, now that we're going to the left, we're going to subtract. So now I have 65, 60, and 55. Now that I've set up my picture, doing this other portion should be a bit more intuitive. So let's do the first question. What percentage of scores are in between 65 and 75? I like to use my hands. I'm going to use my hands to get to 65. So there's 65. I'm going to cover the rest. I'm going to use my other hand to go to 75 and cover the rest. The only two things that are shown are 34 and 34%. So therefore, I'm going to do 34 plus 34, put your percentages, and that's equal to 68%. I'm going to do one more with you. The next question is asking for the percentage of scores in between 60 and 70%. So I'm going to take my hand and I'm going to go to 60, take my other hand and go to 70, 70, there we are. Okay, so there's 60, there's 70. Notice that I only have two numbers. I have 13.5 and 34. I'm going to add those two numbers together. Okay. Be ready, you're going to do the next one, okay? So I have 13.5% plus 35%. This is going to give me 47.5%. So my next question that I want you to try on your own, what are the percentage of scores between 60 and 85%? Make sure you include everything in the middle. Did I say 35? Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant 34. Thank you. is way too excited. Yeah. That's a Freudian slip. That's just a me thing. Okay, now try the next one on your own. Let's go from 60 to 85. And the princess, real cute. I like that. I like that energy. Angel, you trying it? Try the next one. So add all the ones that I connected to. So where are you going now? So where do we? You gonna stop there? Nice. Yep. Add all of those up. Make sure you write down those numbers. It's easier to help find the mistakes. It's also easy if I can check, so if you're wrong, I can show you where you may have went wrong. Make sure you write down what you're putting in the calculator. Crystal. Try the next one. Be careful, okay? You want me to get decisions or? All right, thank you. All righty, let's try it. Y'all ready to try it? Is that okay? Or you want some time? Silence. All right, humans. So, here's 60. I'm going to cover it. Here's 85. Remember, cover this one here. Especially if you're doing it on Khan Academy, you're going to be so upset. Make sure you do not include it if you don't need to. So you should have 13.5% plus 34% plus 34% plus 13.5% plus 2.35%. Okay? This gives you 97.35. Now, what I've also had students do is realize that we already have all of the green, and all the green is equal to 95. So they usually just do 95% plus 2.35%. Just depends. Depends on your preference, all right? The next question is asking you, what percentage of scores is less than 55? Here's 55. You remember that yellow thing I told you that was really important? This is where you need to be very precise. I asked for the percentage. I want 0.15%. Do not write 0.15. That is not right. Because remember when we practiced changing a percentage to a decimal? If you give me a decimal when I want a percent, you're going to be incorrect. So include your percentage, or I will mark it as incorrect. Now I want you to try F. I'm sorry, try E. Try E, and I'll do F with you. Add the next one. And y'all, only 3 more examples, and then I'm gonna let y'all, I don't wanna say chill, but the rest of the time will be yours. Alrighty. So for this one, we're going to do 2.35% plus 0.15%. This is going to give us 2.5%. Okay. Oh, you're cunning. Alright, so the last thing, I will be updating your Khan Academy to make sure you guys are going over percent of a number. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So the question states approximately how many biology students scored between 60 and 70. The first thing I need to remember is how many biology students were there? Look up at the question in number 6. How many biology students are there? 2,000. Nice job. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out how much of them are in between 60 and 70. So if I look at 60 and 70, I'm looking at 13.5 plus 34 is equal to 47.5%. Next thing that I want to do is I want to change this into a decimal. This is why we learned it before we came back. We're going to divide by 100. Here is my hint to you. How many zeros does 100 have? 2. So you're going to move your decimal. Guess how many times? 2 times. Okay, so you can put it in your calculator, or you can move your decimal. Just remember which way you're going to move your decimal. The last step that I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the total by the decimal, because that's going to tell me the piece of the total that is that decimal or that is that percent. So I'm going to do 2,000 times 0.475. That's going to give me 950 students. So I put it in the calculator just like that. Your goal, students, is to tell me how to do G. What's the answer to G? Approximately how many biology students score between 35 and 55 rather and 60? Approximately how many biology students score between 55 and 60?